The Mazda MX-5 Miata is automotive perfection. It's light, it's beautiful, it's got a 50-50 weight distribution, and it's financially accessible. The Miata is one of the most beloved cars out there, and if you want to buy one new in 2024, you can get it for $29,000. That's wild! The Miata is the bar. You get in any sports car, take it for a spin, then ask yourself, is this really better than a Miata? Usually, the answer is no.
A wise Miata lover once told me that the Miata is Mazda's Costco hot dog. It's not a profit powerhouse, but it gets the people going. This is the 2024 Mazda MX-5 Miata, the ND3. And I'm Alanis King. Let's go for a drive and stick around for the end of this video to get this Miata's full report card. Miata Madness today is brought to you by Apex Coffee Roasters. This bag is a little wrinkled because I brought it all the way out to California for this shoot, but that's okay because it doesn't change the fact that it tastes really good. I love Apex. They are so supportive of this channel and everything we do, and they're also supportive of people I love, like my friend Brad Perez, who races in NASCAR. Apex just wants to see people be successful, and that's so cool. And they make really good coffee. If you want to try the coffee, you can use code ALANIS at checkout for 15% off your order.
The Mazda Miata debuted in 1989. Before then, Mazda held a design competition to determine what the car would be. Employees in Japan mocked up front-wheel drive and mid-engine concepts, while the US team brought the idea for what would eventually win out: a front-engine, rear-wheel drive model. The Los Angeles Times reported in 1989 that when the US team presented their idea, their colleagues in Japan shook their heads and felt sorry for the American team because, I quote, "the car didn't look new and was too soft." The little roadster was known at Mazda as the P729 early on, but it lacked an actual model name. Mazda went with the MX-5 Miata, which means reward. 2024 marks the 35th anniversary of the Miata, and Mazda's made more than 1 million of them in that time.
The first generation of the Miata is called the NA, and it has this soft little smile in the grille and pop-up headlights that, when they're up, they look like an excited kid at Disney on Ice or a YouTube thumbnail. The first generation Miata debuted with a 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine and made 116 horsepower. It had a roughly 2,200-pound curb weight and a 50-50 weight distribution, which means that half of the car weighs the same as this half. Incredible handling. The US design team won out in the competition for what the Miata would be. And fittingly, when it debuted at the 1989 Chicago Auto Show, it debuted in red, white, and blue. This is the blue one that was on the show floor. Also on the show floor in 1989 was this guy, the Miata Club Racer concept. This was meant to show what a Miata could be with a few modifications, like these wheels, wider fenders, and getting rid of those pop-up headlights. This car actually inspired the color for the 30th anniversary edition Miata, which debuted in 2019 and was bright orange. The NA generation of the Miata lasted until 1997, and during this time, there were a few changes to the car. Safety features got added, horsepower eventually hit the 130s, and Mazda made some special editions like this M-Speedster.
The second generation Miata is called the NB, and it was around from 1999 through 2005. This car is beautiful. It traded the beloved pop-up headlights for those classic early 2000s ovular ones. And this generation included tons of special editions like the car I own two of, the Mazdaspeed Miata. The Mazdaspeed made 178 horsepower from a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which is wild for a stock Miata. Miatas are known for natural aspiration from the factory, and people supercharging and turbocharging them with aftermarket parts. And as of this video, this was the first and only turbo Miata that Mazda's ever produced. Then comes the third generation NC Miata. Let me know if you're following the pattern there. This car debuted for 2006 and stayed on the market for a decade. The NC has long been the least liked of the Miata generations. People call it girly and a hairdresser's car and too heavy, which I think is unfair in many ways. That's all I have to say about that today. Also, have you seen an NC Miata with aftermarket wheels and boy racer styling? It's sick.
That brings us to this car, the ND Miata. The Miata has such a deep history that if I were to go through all of it, I would have you here for 4 hours. But we're not gonna do that today. For now, we're gonna focus on this one. The ND Miata debuted in 2016, and it was the antithesis of what people believed the NC to be. It wasn't cutesy anymore. It had these pointy, angry eyes, a really sleek body, and Mazda's renowned soul red paint. This car was beautiful 10 years ago, and it's still beautiful today. The 2016 Miata debuted with 155 horsepower at 6,000 RPM from Mazda's 2-liter Skyactiv engine. You could get it with a 6-speed manual transmission, and it got 30 mpg combined, a sports car. 30. A big selling point of the ND was that Mazda cut its weight drastically. This car was 150 pounds lighter than the outgoing NC and weighed in the 2,300 pound range. That makes it almost as light as the original NA with tons of modern safety features. The original ND would become known as the ND1 because, as you're gonna see, it gets lots of updates as the years go on.
The first big update came in 2019 when Mazda announced the ND2. The Miata, long known for being underpowered, now made 181 horsepower from the factory at 7,000 RPM. Redline got bumped from 6,800 to 7,500. The car also sounded better, got a telescopic steering wheel, and still got 30 mpg combined. What a car. Now we've reached the ND3, which is this guy.
This car has a 2-liter 4-cylinder Skyactiv engine that makes 181 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque, just like the ND2 did. That power goes through a 6-speed manual transmission to the rear wheels because the American design team won out.
The ND3 update includes tweaks to the daytime running lights, tail lights, and wheels. Inside, Mazda says you get some, I quote, key updates, like extra padding on the center console for improved driver comfort, simplified high-contrast graphics on the gauge cluster, and a larger infotainment display at 8.8 inches. Then we have the mechanical updates. Mazda says with the ND3 you'll have big upgrades to the electric power-assisted steering system, including a new steering rack. That, according to Mazda, means you'll have reduced friction, smoother steering action, and better precision when the front tires are loaded up while you're taking corners hard. We will definitely test that. There's also a new limited slip differential on cars with LSDs, which is less locked than the last one while going straight. That makes the steering calmer and more free when you're just going in a straight line. The goal with the new steering and new diff is that there's less oversteer and more tendency to go exactly where you want the car to go.
little updates make the ND3 Miata a better package, but in a subtle way. Because Mazda says the Miata doesn't really have any direct competitors. Sure, you can put it in the sports car segment or do anything like that, but this car is kind of its own thing. And when you're competing for Miata buyers, you're competing for people who already own Miatas. You have to convince them to upgrade to a better version of it. And that's what the ND3 is. This particular ND3 Miata is called an RF Club, and it comes in a color called Zircon Sand Metallic. And you can absolutely criticize the ND Miata for not being available in wild colors. They're all very tame and subdued. But I think this one is super classy. It's like army green if you dump a bunch of sand in it. It's pretty cool looking, honestly. But wait. Let's not skip forward too fast, because you might be wondering, Alanis, what does RF Club mean? Translate it to English. Well, that's a great question. Basically, when you spec a Miata, you can go one of two routes, soft top or RF. The soft top is the cloth you see on tons of cars. When it's a sunny day, you just toss it back and go. You have no roof. The RF stands for retractable fastback, which means you got a hard top, but when you press a button, it goes power back and tucks right in, so you don't have a roof anymore. Once you pick soft top or RF, you have trim options to choose from. With the soft top, you have three: the Sport, the Club, and the Grand Touring. Sport is the base model, $29,000, 16-inch wheels, cheapest new Miata you can buy. Club and Grand Touring, they're their own thing. Club is like the boy racer Miata. You have the Recaro seats, the BBS wheels, and you're zipping, right? Grand Touring is like your posh aunt's car. It's more luxurious, laid back, and comfortable, and it's so nice. With the RF, you can only choose between Club and Grand Touring, so have fun. This is the Boy Racer RF, and it starts at $40,000. So if you boy racers want this car, you better have a big boy job. Now it's time for what is usually my favorite segment. How many Atlantises can fit in this Mazda Miata ND3 RF's trunk? It is not going to be my favorite segment today because I'm kind of terrified. We take our phone out, put it right there. Everybody coming down the side of this road is going to be very disturbed at whatever is happening here. Oh. It doesn't pass the hip check. These bones are too wide. Welcome inside the ND3 Miata, where the styling is simple, but that is not a bad thing. One thing I have always loved about the ND Miata is that you can carry the body color inside to the door panels. And I think that just elevates this interior so much, because you look around and there's not a lot going on. The materials don't change much. The patterns don't change much. The contrast stitching in this car is just light gray, right? It's not a visually just popping interior, but the fact that you can bring that exterior color, whatever color you think is beautiful on the outside, and just weave it in to the door panels makes this interior really nice. Now, over the years and over the decades, the big complaint about the inside of a Miata is that for tall people, it's not going to work very well. Also, if you like to track your Miata and you need to bring a helmet in, one, you're going to hit your helmet on the door, and then if you're tall at all, that helmet is going to either be on the roof or just right below it, right? So I'm 5'8.5". I have a little bit of room right here. I'm fine. I can see just fine out of this car. But if I'm a couple inches taller, my head is on the ceiling, and when I'm looking forward, I'm looking into the sun visor. So in order to see the stoplights, I have to go like this, right? So when you're tall, this car is not the easiest to fit in. That's why you need a Porsche 911 if you're tall. You know, just a slight elevation in your price range for that. One thing you get in the Club is these Recaro seats. You have the leather material on the outside and you have the suede in the center. And these seats are so good. When I review cars, when I review sports cars specifically, I'm always disappointed in the bolstering on the side because I have wider hips, and sports cars are typically built for people who don't have hips and have very, very thin bodies going up the side, right? So the bolstering always is kind of uncomfortable for me. These Recaros are extremely comfortable. They look good, they hold you in place, and they're not overly aggressive. They're not just folding in on me, right? And squeezing me like this. But when I'm out driving, they hold me in place. Great seats. Honestly, if I'm looking at this car, try out the Grand Touring seats. Try out the club seats. See what you like better. But I'm gonna pick the club for these seats specifically. Two things I really, really love about the ND Miata is one, the shifter looks like a little sim rig shifter. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. It's a round little ball and it's got the leather wrapped around it. Oh, I love it. Oh, it's so good. I love a round shift knob. And then we have a manual handbrake. So many even sports cars these days have the little electronic, just push up handbrake. Got a manual one right here. You're cranking it up and then you're letting it down. Love that. Another thing about the interior of the Miata is that you are getting no storage space, right? You don't have a glove box in front of the passenger. Your center console thing fits a credit card. It does not even fit my iPhone. Cannot close it with my iPhone in it. The only thing you can fall back on is this little center storage pocket back here, which I could put my iPhone in there. But you have a cup holder already in there, and I have a croissant from this morning, so that's about the amount of space you're working with right there. Welcome inside the ND3. And let's just talk about the big topic first. For decades, people have always said that the Mazda Miata is underpowered. And one, I would rather drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. It's just more entertaining. And two, this is not a slow car. This car has 181 horsepower now. And when you put that power down, it goes. This car has plenty of power. You don't need more than this, in my opinion. Like, I get it. People like having a lot of power. They like to just rip as fast as they can. They like to have party tricks when they have someone in the car with them. But how much fun does that actually get you versus the fun of having adequate power and just getting to rip up to speed? I love it. 181 is so good for this car. I have so much fun in it, and just the way you apply the power, it's just so fun. There's like a little bit of jumpiness to it. When you accelerate, it's ready to go. It doesn't feel slow. Oh, this car has enough power. We need to stop complaining about it. The Miata is not underpowered. Let's go through the basics first of how everything feels, the clutch, the shifter, the gas, everything like that. So I have not driven an ND Miata in a couple of years. I've driven many ND Miatas, just haven't driven one in a little while. And when I got in and I hit the clutch, it was actually lighter than I was expecting. I hit it and I was like, oh, that doesn't have as much weight as I thought it did in my mind. It's a very light clutch, very easy to work. Oh my goodness. And this shifter, when you pop this shifter into gear, it just pops up, pops down. Oh, it feels so nice. The thing about Miatas is I think you get this Miata blending. Every Miata has the same core purpose, which is fun driving experience, 50-50 weight distribution. Everything feels so perfect and fun and nice. And so when you go from Miata to Miata a lot, I have two MB Miatas. My mother has an ND Miata. She used to have an NA. The Miatas kind of blend together because they all have that similar goal. But then you notice the little bitty differences between them, right? I get in this car, it's newer, everything's springier and smoother, and it's just so nice, and it's a fun little surprise because at the end of the day, it feels like a Miata. It feels like the NB Miatas we own. It feels like the NA Miata. Miatas just have the same goal, but when you get in a new one, it just feels nice and new and springy and not like someone's just been shifting on it for like 20 years. And that's what we talked about, right? Miatas. Mazda just updates them to where people who already own Miatas want to upgrade to a newer Miata. They love what they have, but they just want something a little bit better, a little more upgraded. And that's how you feel when you get in this car. It feels like a Miata, but it feels just slightly better in every way. It's also important with a Miata to talk about the size of the car, how small it is. People wonder, oh, is it going to be hard to get in and out of? Is it going to be uncomfortable on long drives? I've been in this Miata for like 5 hours and I am fine. I am more than fine. I'm comfortable. I'm having fun. Because once you're in here, you know, yeah, it's a small car, but does that make it cramped? Not necessarily. As long as you have the right amount of stuff, you as a driver or a passenger don't feel cramped in these seats. You have an appropriate amount of room and you're fine. There's also the pedals, right? Like, this car is small, so you wonder, oh, are the pedals gonna be too close together? Are my feet just gonna trip over each other? No, not really. When I'm in this car, every pedal has a very defined area, and I never feel my feet overlapping with one pedal or the other. Now, we talked about the steering changes and also the differential earlier in this video. So let's talk about the steering first. Mazda updated the steering rack and the steering system and everything like that so that when you are going straight on a highway doing boring stuff, this car basically acts like an open differential back there with the limited slip, right? So you're not feeling the wheel just twitch back and forth when you're going straight. It's just easy, smooth, in place, and that's nice. We also have the steering rack updates and all the updates to the steering friction and stuff like that. When you give this wheel inputs, oh, it's smooth. I don't feel any friction at all. Oh my goodness. And we're gonna get it in some corners and have fun. Another thing Mazda is really proud of with this new car is that they say under hard corners, when you have a lot of load on the front tires, this new steering is supposed to feel extremely pointed, not a ton of oversteer. When you are going for a certain point, the idea is that the car goes that way. And this car does feel really good in corners. It just feels so stable, but not in a boring way. You know, we talk about stability and just comfort being too much sometimes, like in the Toyota Supra. It just makes it a little boring. This never feels boring. It feels so precise and so perfect, but it's such a joy, right? And every time I'm giving this car steering inputs, it's so smooth feeling. Oh, I'm just going through these twisty little S's right now, and the car is doing exactly what I want it to do, and the steering feels so good. Oh, it's a Miata made better. It really, really is. It's really hard to say anything new or profound about a Miata. The Miata debuted with a certain formula: front engine, rear-wheel drive, 50-50 weight distribution, wonderful pointed puppeteered steering. It's been the affordable, fun car for 35 years. So what can you say that hasn't already been said in 35 years of just tiny sports car perfection? Not a lot, but is it fun every single time you get in it? And does it feel profound every single time you get in it? Yeah, and I think that's why there's not a lot new to say. It's just really, really good. And I'm so glad we have this car because, you know, we're going toward EVs. We're going toward a more sustainable future. It's less about fun driving and more about getting where we need to go. The fact that we have a Miata that doesn't sell very much, but is amazing, super fun, fully gas-powered stick, it's the Costco hot dog. Does it make sense? Not really. But does it get people's attention? Absolutely, because it's really, really good. And it's what we all want to drive. Now that we've driven the ND3 Miata, it's time to give this car a grade. Welcome to Alanis's report card. The exterior on this car gets an A. It was beautiful 10 years ago. It's beautiful right now. There's not much else to say about that. The interior gets a B because, as we have known for the decades the Miata has existed, it's not built for tall people, even though tall people love buying it. If you're on the taller side, your head is going to either be near the roof or on the roof, and the seat is not going to go low enough for you. People scoop out the seats in their Miata. It's called a foamectomy because they need to sit 1 inch lower because it matters. So not built for everybody, but the people it's built for, it's built really, really well. Performance on this car gets an A. It's a Miata. Everything's perfect. 50-50 weight distribution. You put it in the corner and it goes so perfectly. Oh, not much more to elaborate on that. Value, B+. Yes, $40,000 for this RF club is a lot of money, but Mazda's not making tons of cash on an ND Miata. And at the same time, Mazda does not have to make this car. It's not a volume seller. It is not a cash cow. We're lucky to have it, and $40,000, it's not too bad for what it is. Would I take this car on a road trip? Yes, I would, but I would not pack a lot of stuff because you don't have room. The thing is, the Miata's comfortable. The seats are nice. You just don't really have room for a lot of suitcases to go, you know? Overall, I give this car an A-. And in my heart, this car is whatever letter is 10 letters in front of A. It is amazing. I own 1 million of them. But according to law of averages, on our grades, it's an A-, and that's pretty good.
The Mazda MX-5 Miata is the perfect formula. Perfect balance between cute and sporty. Perfect driving feel. Perfect 50-50 weight distribution. Perfectly affordable on the new and used markets. It's extremely hard to beat, which is why everyone asks, is that expensive and flashy sports car really better than a Miata? And it's why everyone responds, say it with me now, no.
The good thing is, I don't have to ask myself if any car is really better than a Miata because I have 1 right here and 2 at home. If that's not a good life, then I really don't know what is.